Hey, welcome back to the Hotel Orloff here in scenic rural Retreat, Virginia. It's a rainy day, rainy Saturday afternoon. It's perfect time to organize up here on the 15th floor of the Hotel Orloff. Up here, on this level, we have majority of the comic book collection. We have guest bedroom and a little living area. And but we're always organizing here in the comic room. I wanted to tell you something. Have you noticed in the last 10 years or so, if you go into a thrift store or places you used to find comics, you don't see them as often? I'll tell you a little secret tonight. I started going on a rant on Wednesday night on the Four Color Fossils show, but I'll give you the complete story here. First, I was on the phone with a crypt keeper of Castle Hills for hours this morning, and talking about stuff, and we got to talking about these big big Treasury-sized, tabloid-sized comics from the 70s. Marvel called them Treasury editions. DC called them special collectors, something like that. Anyway, I was going to show you some of those this afternoon because I don't think I've shown them in a few years. But meanwhile, while I do that, I'm going to tell you a little story about the world and how it works. Now, you may not be aware of it, but you know things are awfully weird lately in the world, and you notice people tear down statues of people from the past, and it just seems like the past is something. And in these Disney Star Wars movies, I think there's the past must be forgotten and all this. When did that ever become an American slogan, to forget the past? We're supposed to remember the past, right? Well, we're in the middle of a socialist revolution, whether you want to admit it or not, and it's been going pretty heavy since the presidency of Obama, and we were given a reprieve when Trump was president, but a lot of people that were appointed into various positions by Obama kind of tried to keep things status quo and tried to prevent the changes happening. But anyway, while Obama was president in 2009, you could look this up, the Consumer Protective, whatever their stupid name is, they said, well, books printed prior to the early 80s or 1978 and back, it was somewhere between 78 and 85, they had lead in their ink, and those are dangerous. Those books are dangerous for little kids. So if you run a thrift store or a used book store, or if you just have a garage sale and you sell, say, an old Dr. Seuss book from 1960 and it's given to a little kid, you can be liable for a huge penalty. And you have to test these books first, which would cost you between $300 and $600 to test the book, and to make sure there's no lead in the black ink. And it would also cause the book to be destroyed so you test it, and you'd pay $600 to find out this book you were going to sell for 50 cents at a garage sale doesn't have lead, but now the book's no good because you had to destroy it to do the test. So basically, and also libraries, So libraries started pulling out all these children's books printed prior to the early 80s, and a lot of thrift stores and used bookstores just chunked those old books in the trash because they didn't want to wind up having to get the books tested. Then later they said, well, maybe you don't have to get them tested, but by then the damage was done, and people are very wary of selling these old books. Now, is that the real reason? They're just really concerned about you being exposed to lead? Come on. Who buys a book, a 60-year-old book, and gives it to a baby so they can put it in their mouth? If you buy an old collector's edition book, you're going to probably read it to the baby. You're not going to give it to them some book that was probably expensive to buy and is really cool. You're just going to give it to the baby to eat, because that's the only way the lead's going to hurt the child, is if they actually start chewing on the pages. Now, is this a comic book channel? I don't know. There's comic books behind me, so I guess I talk about comics a lot, so I guess we'd call it a comic book channel. Well, that applies to comic books too. It's not in the color ink, it's in the black printing ink that they used lead. Okay, it's a minute amount. What is their real agenda? Do they care about us? You know the government doesn't care about us. Come on. They want to control us, and they want to get rid of old books, because old books have old ideas. Old books, if you open an old book, you might find that there used to be something where there was a family with a mom and a dad and children, and you'd see that, and you say, well, gosh, I don't see that today. And they don't want people to be exposed to those old ideas of the 50s and 40s. They don't want you to know about a Norman Rockwell world. They want you to think that never happened. That's just a myth. They want, in order for them to push forward their socialist utopia, they need to destroy the family unit, the nuclear family, the traditional way of Americans, the Christian values. They want all that gone, and the best. So they're not gonna create a bonfire and burn the books like in Nazi Germany. They're gonna just say, hey, we just care about you. We got to get rid of these old books because they'll hurt you. It's a 1984 world we're living in. Well, okay, so that was kind of forgotten about. That was something Obama tried, and then, I don't know, it seems like people kind of forgot about that. Although I sure don't see comic books ever in the Salvation Armies or the Goodwills like I kind of used to. You just don't see it. Okay, well, last week I see in the news that up in Canada, in Ottawa, in a library, they were getting rid of a school library. They were clearing out all books printed before 2009. Now they've upped it from the mid 80s, late 70s to 2009. We've got to get rid of these books. And so now the bookshelves in this library have just a few books on each shelf. There was plenty of room for the old books, but they want the old books gone. It's a traditional practice for school libraries. They weed books every year. They say, well, we're getting rid of books that nobody ever checked out, or that have old ideas, or, just that's what they do. They're told to do that. And they're told that the books have to be destroyed, have to be put in the dumpster, because they don't want, usually, library books have stamps on them, so if they give them away and then someone takes them to half-price books, and then someone buys a book at half-price books and it sees the library stamp on it, it doesn't say withdrawn, and they say, well, why am I buying books that I paid my tax dollars for from half-price books? That's not right. So anyway, big mess. Basically, okay, so let's say a book hasn't been checked out in 10 years, but maybe the next year there'll be a kid that stumbles into that library that wants that book, and it won't be there. You can't say, well, no one's checking it out, and we just have to destroy it. And another thing, you say, well, it has scientific misinformation because it talks about someday man will land on the moon. Those were the coolest books I ever read when I was a kid. Man had already landed on the moon in 1969. So I'm reading in the school library, and there's books from the 1950s that say, someday we will land on the moon, and it shows what the rocket ships will look like, and they're just the most amazing, beautiful paintings of what the future will look like, the future, someday in the future year of 1999. And to me, that's cool to see what people in the past thought today's future would look like. But, so this is a way to ban books, and these liberals that are banning these books now are taking them out of the libraries. But what they always do when they do things themselves, they accuse the other guy of doing it. So if they're dealing with the Russians or the Chinese, they say, that bad man over there is dealing with the Russians, meaning Trump, when they're really the ones doing it and selling secrets and all that. And now they're accusing the Republicans of being mean and taking books out of the library because they have really pretty dirty stuff in them, saying they're just being blah blah phobic and blah blah blah. And it's like, but in really secretly they're taking all these other books out because they're just too dangerous. They've got lead in the paint. Anyway, the ink. Anyway, so let's look at some books that have lead in the ink. But we're not going to chew on them, so we should be safe, ladies and gentlemen. Let's look at some Treasury editions. I started going off on that rant the other day on four-color fossils, but now... Oh, when I was talking to the Crypt Keeper of Castle Hills, I was talking about how we in the comic book community like to show our comic book rooms, do tours of our domiciles, and show how we live and everything, and then but we never point the cameras down at the floor and show all the disorganized mess. Or there'll be a neat organized comic book room and they'll say, I have blah 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 100,000 comics. It's like, really, where are they? I see some boxes, but I know that's not that many comics. Where do you actually have your majority of your collection? I want to see that. Take me to because I want to see the what's under the surface. I think it's good, and I think it's a healthy thing to let people know that maybe you're thinking about getting into this hobby, to really see what it's really going to look like, and really how disturbing your life will be. Okay, so let's look at some fantastic books, ladies and gentlemen. Book number 1, filled with horrible lead, is I'm sorry, I thought the camera was moving. Oh, there's a light bulb out. Let me see if I can... dang it. Okay. The light bulb was actually, whenever it's out, I just need to touch it and turn it a little bit and it comes back on. This is a scrapbook, actually. But it's in here with my comic book Treasury editions. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? Here's a recent Treasury edition. This Alex Ross JLA Secret Origins. Now, these morons in Hollywood that make these superhero movies, they say we can't have them wear the costumes they wear in the comics. It would just look too silly. We've got to change it and make it look like real. But Alex Ross shows you, no, you really can make a movie look pretty darn cool, with making them look like the traditional suits that are in the comics. And you could see here, it worked with Christopher Reeve. You can say, no, that was old-fashioned. If you think that was old-fashioned, if you think that Christopher Reeve didn't look good as Superman wearing the traditional comic book outfit, then you're clearly just a moron. And I'm sure you've already stopped watching this video if you're one of those people. Because I spent 10 minutes talking about politics, and that clears out the room of the riffraff. Now we can look at the stuff. Now, this wouldn't have lead in the ink because it's recent. And by recent, it's probably 10, 15 years old. But to me, that's recent. Now, Alex Ross uses models. And whoever those models are, whoever this woman is that's posing as Wonder Woman, maybe they should use Alex Ross as a casting agent for these Hollywood movies. This is a Wonder Woman comic painted by... just beautiful. That's beautiful. Now, Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman for my generation, Linda Carter. Always loved Linda Carter, but yesterday she kind of entered into, the danger is, she's not really Wonder Woman. She was an actress that played Wonder Woman really well, and she was a beautiful actress. I don't know her. I don't know her politics, but yesterday she came out. Apparently someone on Twitter somewhere made a meme where they pasted Carrie Lake's face on top of Linda Carter's face, and Carrie Lake was Wonder Woman, and I think they were calling her MAGA Woman. Well, Linda Carter put a very indignant Twitter comment, or Twitter or X or whatever it's being called, and she said, I don't think this is right because I, as Wonder Woman, portrayed kindness and truth and justice the American way. Boy, I look terrible. Look at these. You can see my skull. Look at these lines. You can see my eye socket. I'm so near death. Holy shit. Shoot. Anyway, so Wonder Woman was against Carrie Lake, and then Carrie Lake had a response saying, I've always admired you, and I watched every episode of your show, and I really, because Carrie Lake's one of the nicest people in the world, but they hate her because there's a good chance, a really very good chance, Carrie Lake could be the vice presidential candidate with Donald Trump, you know. So, but, you know, I guess Linda Carter watches MSNBC and has been told that Carrie Lake is a bad woman, and actually she's a very nice person. Okay, so we're looking at this stuff. This is my childhood copy. This was bought for me by my mother, Christmas of 1972, while we were living in Hampton, Virginia. This is the very first. This is the beginning of the oversized cardboard covered comic books of the 70s. This was the first one. This is considered pretty rare, scarce. I don't know what the word is, but there aren't many out there. You don't see it very often. But it was there in the bookstore that we went every week in Hampton, Virginia, and I got it, and it's just beautiful looking. And these are all reprints of, in the 1950s, DC had a Rudolph comic, and there would be a issue of Rudolph that would come out every Christmas. And so I didn't know this was old stuff. I just knew it was gorgeous. It's just, I mean, it's a new cover, but all the insides are reprints. But it's all by the same artist. This beautiful, it's just beautiful. Of course, Rudolph is comes from a song. It started as a children's book and then turned into a song, or maybe it started as a song. Late 40s, I think. I think Montgomery Ward started the Rudolph thing. Gene Autry sang the song, of course. And here's, yeah, they called these limited collector's edition. This one I found at a half-price books. This is not a childhood copy. This is a later Rudolph. We were just talking, Crypt Keeper and I were talking about the weird numbering system. I don't really necessarily put these in order chronologically, but I just put them in order by theme. So I have all the Rudolphs together. These Rudolphs, I bought them at half-price books, really cheap. I think maybe they're all sought after, but it was the first one that's the most valuable. Here's another issue of Rudolph. Now, what I really want are some actual real Rudolph comics from the 50s. Someday, maybe I'll get some. Maybe I'll get one this Christmas. We just had a blessing this morning, and that relative of my wife sent us some money as a gift, and it's going to bail us out of about half of the jam that we're in, and it's going to really help us. And it just we've had a lot of blessings. You know, if you just pray and count on God, it really is true. I mean, it's like just when you think things are getting bad, then suddenly something happens, and it's just like, whoa, where out of nowhere something will surprise you, and you'll be all of a sudden okay. And it's like now I just happened to stumble on the right comic book store at the right time, and they had bags and boards for Treasury editions, and most comic stores don't even know what these things are. They don't carry supplies for them. I thought maybe if I mean, people collect Life magazine. There are people that collect that. And I thought maybe if I got bags and boards for a Life magazine that it would work, but they don't quite fit. They're not quite big enough. So you really have to get something made for these Treasury editions. Yeah. Life magazines, if you don't bag them and board them, they'll really sag down because they're it's just the way they're designed. They don't have stiff covers. Okay, here's some marble ones. Yeah, these are not in order. I think, I know why. I put the Christmas stuff in the front because I was doing a Christmas show last year. So that's why this isn't in order. This is my childhood giant superhero holiday grab bag. On the back cover, you can see them from the other direction. You can see them running away from you. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone was having hiccups last night on my show. Now I have hiccups again. I think it's because I filmed the show right after I eat. Here's 1975. Oh, my wife is calling. I better go see what's up. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, 1 second. I will return. I can't answer the phone because I'm filming the show on my iPhone. I'll go see what she is. Look at this framed picture here. This framed picture, I'm pretty sure this has lead in it. Horrible lead. But something like that, I don't think socialists want you to hang this picture on your wall. So I think I'll hang it on my wall because this shows what the United States used to be like. And honestly, it is still like this in some places. It's like life is like this where I live now. It stopped being like that where I used to live, so I left that place. All is not lost for the United States. Do not think that. We're in a dire place. We people need to wake up. And when we wake up, then we'll be okay. But things are, things are not good. Because of the 81 million people that voted for Biden, things are a little bit dire. Okay, this is what did it for me, man. As a kid, I was into monsters. I loved Harvey Comics. Of course, Harvey Comics, most of them were about monsters, but monsters in diapers, and little baby ghosts and baby witches and devils. And I loved DC. Joe Orlando at DC tried to bring back the horror comics of the early 50s with House of Mystery, House of Secrets, and all that, the horror line, all the horror comics. I was into that. See, I was born in 65, so all of a sudden the comics code gets relaxed right about 1970, and all of a sudden there's all this monster horror stuff, and I was loving it because any normal, in my opinion, normal little boy loves monsters and horror. I wasn't really into the superheroes, but one time I was sick and my mom bought me I think Man-Thing #1, which was a monster comic, and she bought me a Spider-Man, maybe issue 128, and some other comic, right? So I had a Spider-Man, but I didn't really read it. It's just like, okay, that's a superhero comic. I'm more into this monster comic. This came out, and my mom bought it for me. I think we got it at the Lone Star Ice House in San Antonio. See, in San Antonio, they're a little different. They call it what most people say convenience stores. They call them ice houses, because in reality, a lot of people went to get ice. But Lone Star, anyway, this was there. My mom bought it for me. I read it. It blew my mind. It's Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, Fantastic Four. It's got the Galactus trilogy in it. It's got early Fantastic Four. It just blew my mind. I loved it. And there might be some barking here in a minute, because the dog just jumped on the bed in the guest bedroom where the two cats are. But it looks like so far they have a condition of détente. Okay, the dog's sitting, laying down. Everyone's copacetic, so all is well. Anyway, this is what made me realize, oh, those superhero comics are good too. It's not just Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf by Night, The Living Mummy, Morbius, all that stuff. Maybe I should go back and read that Spider-Man comic that I ignored that my mom bought for me, and I did, and then I just, one thing after the other happened in the school year of 1973-74, and I started buying Fantastic Four and all that, and reading the old Spider-Man stories and Marvel Tales and the old Fantastic Four stories and Marvel's Greatest Comics, and I became a huge fan of Marvel. And this is what did it for me, this issue. Now, okay, this is my childhood copy. This one, so didn't I get another one recently? Where the heck is that one? Oh, here it is. This is one I got recently. Now, I'm not normally an idiot where I just buy. Yeah, I am too. I'm not normally someone that buys multiple copies of something, but you know, something that was this historic to me in my development as a wonderful person and citizen of the United States. This Fantastic Four issue, I saw that Kevin Johnson at the wonderful historic Gotham City Comics in Mesa, Arizona, where Kerry Lake was running for governor and is now running for senator soon, and may soon be our next vice president. He had one that he was selling really cheap. It's not in good. Look at this, incredible damage. Whoever bid on that was exposed to highly toxic lead in the black ink. See those lines? All have lead in them, and someone bid into it. That person now has lead poisoning, I will tell you. Anyway, this is my second copy I got. You call it a reading copy. And since it's not bagged and I'm too lazy to pull those books out of the bag, I can show you the interior of this. And you should get this, because this is, look at that, shows inside the Baxter building. And one thing is just so great to see this art on such a big scale, which is almost the size of the original art. You know, these are about the size like of a National Enquirer. Look at that. There's a pinup of the Fantastic Four as they were in when I started reading the comic. See, she had taken off for a while to raise her son, so Thundra took over in her place, and Thundra is a femazon. It's kind of like DC had Amazons. Well, Marvel had femazons, but they were even more extreme than the Amazons in the DC comics. They were they ruled supreme, and then they had men that were more like cavemen that were basically their slaves. And of course, that's Medusa, who was the Human Torch's girlfriend. And there's Agatha Harkness. They're making a TV series that will be terrible about her, except she's played by someone that's like a quarter of her age. I mean, she's supposed to be an older woman. They did the same thing with Aunt May. They made Aunt May like 35 in the last Spider-Man movies. I mean, but it's an alternate multiverse version of Spider-Man, so I guess it's okay. Whatever. Just great stuff. I just couldn't believe how great this stuff was. So this is what will change your life, ladies and gentlemen. What else was I going to tell you about? Well, Donald Trump will be in South Carolina Monday for a rally. That'll be fun to watch. Here's another childhood copy of The Mighty Thor. This is the third of the Marvel Treasury editions. The first one was Spider-Man. Second one was Fantastic Four. This is the third one. I still don't have the first one. I didn't buy it when I was a kid, and it's something I should have, but I don't have it. Perhaps if you have one and you have an extra one, I will buy it from you. The fourth one, Marvel Treasure Edition, was Conan the Barbarian. Now he was, if you weren't there in the 70s, you don't realize that Conan was one of the biggest selling comics for Marvel. When Mego put out their dolls, and yes, they were called dolls, they weren't called action figures back then, they made one of Conan, but they didn't do the X-Men because the X-Men was a failed comic at that point. It wasn't selling. In fact, it was in reruns. They were running reprints. It wasn't until, like, this is 74. It wasn't until, no, that's 75. I guess not long after this, or maybe simultaneously with this, they started the new X-Men, and that's when Wolverine and all those new characters came along, Nightcrawler, and that's when the X-Men started to be big. The X-Men was always a comic that I thought it was always great, but it was always kind of on life support all through the 60s. Stan Lee kept that comic going, I guess knowing that someday it might be something, but he sure didn't let it get canceled, really. I always wanted this one. I saw it on the magazine rack at HEB in San Antonio, but I only got it a few years ago. My wife got it for me from eBay as a birthday present, and I was thrilled. And so this is the Doctor Strange issue of the Marvel Treasure Edition. It's the 6th issue, so I was thrilled to get that. That's Marvel Treasure Edition, but they also had something called Special Collector's Edition, and this is it. See, Special Collector, and this is number 1. This is not one I got back in the 70s. I got this more recently. In fact, I can't really remember where I got it, but I'm happy I got it. I never really bought the Kung Fu karate comics when they were out in the 70s. I caught on to all that later. Bruce Lee died, I think, right before my 3rd grade year started, which was the summer of 73, and then Enter the Dragon came out a little bit after that. Enter the Dragon was the first big American James Bond level movie with Bruce Lee. It was gonna, kickstart his career in the United States. Before then, Bruce Lee was a known, very popular entertainer, but we were getting his movies from Hong Kong. And so this movie comes out, but it's posthumous. He's already passed away, so therefore it's like, what are we gonna do? Bruce Lee's dead and he's super popular, so they got all these people that kind of sort of look like Bruce Lee, and then they had a guy named Bruce Lee, but instead of spelled L-E-E, it was spelled L-I, and people that weren't very smart went to those movies and thought they were watching the real Bruce Lee, and then they would get other people that were... The Kung Fu movies just exploded at that time. And of course, Marvel that started putting out tons of kung fu comic books, and so did DC. All right. Captain America's Bicentennial Battles. This has some great artwork in it. There was also a Superman Bicentennial one, but that one doesn't have Superman in most of the book. It's mostly Tomahawk, as I recall. There's a little bit of a bait and switch. A lot of one. This one I got more recently, in the last 10 years. This is not one I had as a kid. I remember which ones I had as a kid. Do I have all of them? No. This is number 10, and I don't know what number 11 is. Number 12, this one I definitely got as a kid, because it was so exciting that finally you were going to be able to read Howard the Duck number 1, because they reprinted it in here, because they know that a lot of kids weren't able to get Howard the Duck number 1 because these comic book dealers speculating bought up all the Howard the Duck number 1s before they left the distributors. They never got to the magazine stands. They hoarded them all and sold them through mail order at comic conventions, and so that spawned the myth that Howard the Duck had limited distribution, and they're selling it for, $15, $20, $30, which was King's Ransom. And that sounds cheap today, but back then, in 1975, 76, kids couldn't afford that. This is one I got when it came out, 1977. Beautiful artwork. Beautiful artwork. 15. Then I don't have 16. 17. I remember buying this. This was when the TV show was on the air with Lou Ferrigno and Bruce Bixby. I think I fixed the lighting situation by just moving. I've got the camera mounted on a bunch of milk crates, and the milk crates will slide around very easily on this wooden floor, see, so. Just in case you think the camera's on a rolling tripod, this is not ABC or NBC or CBS. It's very cheap here at the Orloff Inspirational Network. This is a Spider-Man number 18. At this point, the Spider-Man TV series was on or had just been canceled. Really, Mike McCarthy was on this network a few weeks ago during the summer replacement for Four Color Fossils, and he stated that everything, pretty much culture, ended in 1977. I couldn't argue with him. After 1977, to me, all the stuff I really love. I mean, there's been great stuff since 77, yes, but for the most part, comics kind of died in 77. I was so disappointed with the Spider-Man TV series. It's like, how did Stan Lee do that to us? He moves out to Hollywood and he tells us we've got a great Spider-Man show coming, and it's terrible. And the Hulk show was fun. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't the Hulk from the comics, fighting monsters and stuff. It was just basically a remake of The Fugitive, but The Fugitive turns into a green monster at the end of the episode. But it was basically the exact same show. And I love monsters, and monsters kind of died with Star Wars, and everything became science fiction. And I love Star Wars, like I said, but it killed the monster magazines. Famous Monsters with R2-D2 on the cover, and but 77, that's kind of the height of punk rock. Things changed. Then Marvel became really commercial and started making tons of comic books about toys and some of them worked, Micronauts, and a lot of people love the G.I. Joe comic, but everything just kind of started to feel a little cheap. Then the 80s, see, in the early 70s, all through the Silver Age and the Golden Age, you have a certain generation making comics. The Silver Age, it's that same generation, the World War II generation, just a little bit older, making comics. Late 60s, the baby boomers come in. These young people, college age, a little bit out of college. The Roy Thomases, the Jim Starlins, and they're the hippies taking LSD, and they make the comics all cosmic, right? So there's that happens in the Bronze Age. It's like that new blood that comes into the comic industry. Well, in the 80s, and I loved Watchmen when it came out. My wife just sent me a message that says love you. I was about to say love you too, but she can't hear me. This is nice. It makes me tear up. Anyway, so I just think about all the years before she came along, and that's so wonderful to have her now, and it's like it's great to see stuff like that. Had a lot of lonely years, man. A lot of lonely years. Man, that threw me off, man. What the heck am I talking about, ladies and gentlemen? So, I was talking about the 70s, the 80s. Oh, the 1980s. Well, okay. 80s, the comics turned dark. DC wrote Crisis on Infinite Earths, beautiful looking comic, but basically everything and that you've read in those Silver Age comics never happened, didn't exist. And it's like, oh, I don't like that. And Marvel starts doing Marvel Secret Wars. It's like, oh, we're putting all our characters and all the villains together so we can sell a toy line. That's all that was. And I thought I was in college, I was getting real cynical about it. Maybe I should spend my money on these records and these posters and other things, and just mainly deal with buying the old comics and not and so didn't like the black suit that Spider-Man was wearing and all that. So, but in the 80s, comics became dark, and you had Watchmen and Dark Knight, and I enjoyed those comics when they came out, but I just didn't know all the comics were gonna become that. I thought it was just this interesting, something different. What was coming in, now the new blood coming in, the early 70s, it was these hippies coming in. Now it's these British warlocks coming in, and literal warlocks, male witches coming in, writing these comics. And I saw something so disturbing yesterday that it made me so angry. Apparently, in the last 10 years, I saw a series of panels that were drawn in the style of the Batman animated series from the 90s that was on Fox, right? And it was Batgirl talking to Batman, and she was telling him that she was pregnant. And he says, does Dick know? Because Batman assumes that Robin got her pregnant. And she says, oh no, I haven't seen him in a certain number of weeks. And then, which means that she hasn't seen him since she became pregnant. So basically she's telling Batman, you got me pregnant. Done in the art style, and I thought, what is this from? What is DC doing? And it turns out it's from Batman Beyond 2.0 or something from the I think it's from 7, 8, 9 years ago. So I'm thinking, you're doing this in the comics. It's pervasive, culture wide. They want to bring down everything good, everything wholesome. They want to bring it down into the gutter to usher in their little stupid socialist utopia. And it's like, you don't do that. Batman is a symbol of virtue. All the superheroes are. You don't do that, man. I know you own the character, Warner Brothers or whatever corporation owns you. This is the Battlestar Galactica adaptation. That's really bad artwork there. You don't do that. And now in the comics, Batman has a son. Okay, well, what's wrong with having a son? Well, Batman was never married, so I guess it's Rathal al Ghul. Okay, so you don't do that. With the heroes are supposed to stand for something, and so you shouldn't be having kids outside of marriage. And then you give them the name Damien. It just, and apparently that's going to be the storyline of the Batman movie that's coming out that James Gunn's doing. And I don't accept anything that's happened since the '80s in comics. It's just ridiculous. This is my time period here. This is 1976. This was still a good time. I don't do this stuff, man. It's just ridiculous. They want to do that. Well, I will ignore their comics and I will keep buying the old comics, but I don't want to give them any money. I'm sick enough that I'm giving them money for these replicas they're doing. Like, they seem to be, Marvel and DC are putting out facsimile comics. In a couple of days they're putting out a Silver Age Flash comic. I don't know what issue, but it must have some significance. And last week they put out Detective Comics, I think 58 or something like that, with the first appearance of the Penguin. And I've got one of those on hold with Kevin at Gotham City Comics. But I think that's... Wait, do I have 2 copies of that? Oh my gosh, I have 2 copies of that. Not intentional. Yeah, I love the past. I honor and respect the past. I don't believe in getting rid of old books. That's a total... man, that's beautiful. Really, look at the coloring there. Look at the red glow. The red glow on her. Comics don't look like this anymore. I mean, as much as some of you may love the computerized stuff, I like artwork that was actually someone that picked up a pencil, a pen, a brush. I like the past. Ever listen to a band called the Modern Lovers? Their first album, the Modern Lovers' first album, there's a song on there. It's just listen to it free on YouTube, called The Old World. I think if I can remember the lyrics, this is the first time I really read Dick Tracy. It just blew my mind how great it was. And I think the song goes something like, I see the 50s apartment house bleak in the 1970s sun, but I still love the 50s and I still love the old world. And he says, it's basically, you know, what is it's an argument against the hippies that hated the 50s the time that they grew up. He said, I still love that time period. And he has another song Jonathan Richman has another song on the album called The New World. He talks about, I love the New World too, but I respect the old world. Oh my gosh, what is up here? Oh my gosh. This is something I bought later in life. This is not a childhood copy. I never would have damaged a book like that. This is when DC was reprinting their classic editions, and this is reprinting of Action Comics #1. Notice it's got some kind of tape pull there. Let's go and open it up and look at it. I might have gotten this one from Gotham City Comics. But see, the thing about this, and I'm sure you know about this, it's got a cardboard cover, right? You open it up, and then you have an exact facsimile of Action Comics #1. The only thing that's different about this from the real comic that came out in the late 30s is that, see, it looks exactly like it, right down to the indicia. Nothing that says it's a reprint. So unscrupulous people would tear off this outer cardboard cover and they would try to sell this to people that aren't too bright as the real comic for, you know, like $100 or, you know. And now Action Comics #1 would probably cost you, you know, $1 million. I mean, literally. But the the only way you can tell that you're being scammed is that this is bigger. A real Golden Age comic would probably be about that big. This is much bigger. This is the size, like I said, of a Life magazine. Look at this. The back cover is reprinted exactly. And look at that ad, that Johnson Smith Company ad. Look at that tiny print. Look at how wonderful that is. I think this has recently been reprinted again in a facsimile edition. I think I have one on hold. I've got a giant hold stack at Gotham City Comics, and I'm working on getting that up. So not every story in here is a Superman story. I mean, this is Superman's first appearance, so I mean, they didn't really know he was going to be a huge hit. Look at this. Celebrities: Fred Astaire, Constance Bennett. There's even one strip in here that was printed in black and white. But so this is not in high grade condition, but I wonder if those morons that like to slab their books and encase them in plastic, do they slab Treasury, like books this big? I don't think they do. Some of those big time collectors that like to slab their books, they turn their noses up at these. They don't like to collect these Treasury editions because they're too big and they don't fit in their collection. Here is my childhood copy of House of Mystery. I remember getting this at the PX in Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio. Beautiful. This great Sergio Aragonés art in it. I mean, it's fantastic. And then, I didn't know this as a kid, but they put out a Treasury edition of Ghost. And I got this recently. It was, this is a book that Kevin had at Gotham City Comics, but it really, he considered it, you know, not really in a good enough shape to sell at the store. So, you know, I got a whole bunch of these Treasury editions from him at the same time, because, you know, I've never seen this before. And some people would turn up their nose at the spine ticks, you know, on a black cover, you know. But I just want to read it, man. What am I going to wait another 20 years to find another copy of this? I don't think 20 years I'll be 78, you know. Yeah, maybe I could live that long. I'm trying to watch my diet lately. I've been trying not to. I've kicked soda pop, and I've lost a little bit of weight. I don't know. I look terrible right now. This lighting. My gosh. I thought this. Hold on. One of these light bulbs up here is. Keeps going out. There we go. Yeah. So, how are you guys doing? You doing wonderfully? Yeah, of course you are. I feel pretty good today. I just look at the camera. I look pretty bad. I don't think I got enough sleep. This is the Shazam Treasury edition. That's the guy that played Captain Marvel. It's really ironic. The DC sued and caused Captain Marvel to go out of business, and you know, the company out of business. And then years later, they hire the artist to come back and continue on. And there's a TV show on Saturday mornings. Captain Marvel was actually drawn to look like Fred McMurray. If you've ever seen My Three Sons, you realize, yeah, he really does look like that actor. This guy doesn't look like Fred McMurray, but he's perfectly acceptable as a hero. They had another guy play him in the second season. The first Shazam movie that came out, I thought was okay. I mean, I didn't really like that Captain Marvel was portrayed as kind of a moron. I didn't see the second one. I heard people liked it, but just never saw it. Um, um, I don't know if I have these DC ones in any particular order. This one I bought as a kid, this Batman one. Look at the beautiful colors with the reds down here. This is limited collector's edition C44. I guess they are in some sort of order. Here's more Secret Origins of Supervillains, and it's C45. Most comic stores don't have these. If your comic store has these, that store is a keeper. It's a good store. Because that means the owner is smart enough to know how cool these things are. This is another one I got recently. This painting was in the DC offices, I guess from the 40s, and it just stayed there in the 50s, 60s. It was just always on the wall, and that's a actual, I guess, oil painting that was done, and I guess it was something that was on the wall, and they just kind of, after a while, people just, oh, that's always been there, but it's just fun to read comics really big. And when you're a little kid, there's some golden age stories. When you're a little kid, this seems even bigger. This, it's big to me now, but as a kid, this seemed gigantic. Of course, in the 1960s, I think the biggest comic book ever came out, which Whammo, the company that made the hula hoop and the frisbee and all those little gimmicky things, they put out a book called the Whammo Giant Size Comic or something like that. They even advertised it on television, and it was gigantic, like maybe bigger than the size of your dad's newspaper, and that had Wally Wood art and all kinds. This and that Superman are ones I just got a couple of months ago. This is an extra copy because I already have this. They're not in very good condition. I mean, look at that. Look at the spine problems, but they're fun to read. And I never had that Superman one. I do have this, but this is just a fun to read copy. The Legion of Superheroes is something I dearly love. The 60s version and the 70s version. I don't know about the later versions of the once. Well, at a certain point, they wrote Superboy out of the continuity of DC Comics, and then Legion existed without him. I think now they have Supergirl being the connection with modern times with them. This is the big Superman, beautiful looking cover, bicentennial issue, but inside Superman barely appears. Unlike that Captain America one. And I think I bought this one at a 7-Eleven, believe it or not. This reprints the whole story, Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil storyline with her. She's the one that's supposed to be the mother of Batman's son, which I don't know if Batman's son becomes a new Robin or what they're doing with the comics today, because I don't pay attention to them. Here's This one I think I got at 7-Eleven. Maybe the other one. I remember getting this one at 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven. It's the Best of DC Volume 1. So they reprint all these classic stories. Hold on a second, ladies and gentlemen. That's a problem. Okay, here's the copy I bought when it came out. That Superboy I just showed you, Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. This is the one I bought when it came out. So I have two of it now. One in really good shape that I bought when I was a kid, and one that someone else bought as a kid that they didn't keep too good. This is, according to Neil Adams, the highlight of his whole career, Superman fighting Muhammad Ali, and you got Jimmy Carter, and all these celebrities watching. There's more celebrities on the back cover, and there's a key inside that tells you all the celebrities are. You know what I never got was the Superman versus Spider-Man, which was this big historic thing, the two companies collaborating. Everybody says it's a great story. I think it came out and I thought that's too gimmicky. I think I was cynical and I was stupid. I didn't buy that issue. But Batman's Strangest Cases. Yeah, I don't know. What's wrong with me? I didn't buy the book that everybody said was wonderful. Okay, here's another famous first edition. This is the first appearance of Captain Marvel. They've done this again recently, the facsimile, and on an episode a while back, I kind of reviewed this. See, it's got no, it doesn't. They reprint the back cover, but they don't. This is the only image you get. Oh no, they do too. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so this one you could tear the cardboard cover off and fool people into thinking they're getting the first appearance of Captain Marvel. That's later DC stopped doing that because they realized people were getting in, and this is the first issue of Batman. And this one again reprints the cover and the wonderful back cover with the yeah, more than a few people were fooled. Here's All-Star Comics number 3. But this, okay, here's where they stopped doing it. Okay, so that's the front cover. They reprint the inside front cover on the cardboard, and then you just start with a comic here. And this was the back cover of the original issue, and they make it where you cannot fool people. They're not giving you the cover anymore with that issue. And it was just 2 years ago, there was an old man trying to tell me that he had the first issue of Superman, and I said, it's about the size of a Life magazine. He thought that was the right answer. He says, oh yeah, and I said, well then that's a reprint from the 70s, and once it's had the cover ripped off, it doesn't have a whole lot of value. I mean, it's not worthless, but someone would like to have it just for display, but and he was saying, no, I've had it authenticated, well, with someone that, with your crack dealer downtown. But if they authenticated it, why didn't they buy it from me? Why are you trying to hawk it to me at a comic store? This is a movie. This is part of their series. It doesn't have comic stories in it. It's more articles about Superman and his history and about the movie that was coming out at that time. See that? You can do the Superman suit and make it look right. Now in the modern Superman movies, they don't have him wearing the red underwear on the outside. They think it looks so dumb. It doesn't. It's the way Superman's supposed to be. These people. What's wrong with them? Okay, fantastic. Batman All-Star. This is Wonder Woman #1. This is my childhood copy of this one. The other one was one I got later. Ugh. Sorry, I'm getting annoyed. Here's Sensation Comics #1, which is the first appearance of Wonder Woman. Here is Tarzan of the Apes. Beautiful. Oh man, I didn't even know I had this one. When did I get this? I don't even know what's... I've always thought, man, I wish I had that issue. I've had it. I didn't buy it when I was a kid. I must have bought it at some point. I think this one is pretty sought after. I just don't remember buying it. There were a lot of years where I was very busy and had a lot on my mind, and I'd buy stuff, and you know, my previous career was very stressful, and it looks like I bought things and didn't even know it. Shocking, ladies and gentlemen. And then this is even bigger than a Treasury edition, Screwball Comics, and this is reprinting lots of newspaper comic strips and Rube Goldberg, Smokey Stover. This is great stuff. It's fun to read. It's whether do people collect it? I don't know. Maybe not. This is just not in great condition, but it's perfectly readable. And what we do here on the Orloff Inspirational Network, we believe in reading books, not putting them in plastic slabs. Okay, well, that was one box. How am I storing them? I got them in this big, tall milk crate, and that's the thing, is how do you store Treasury editions? It's see, this mess is something that I am organizing, and I should be doing that now instead of doing this television program. But it's kind of addictive. It's fun to do YouTube shows. I wish more of you out there would do your own individual shows. I think you will. It's fun. This is Treasury-sized raw. It's a little bigger, maybe. This is an art school kind of thing. This is where you know, Mouse first appeared. The little metaphor about mice and cats as metaphors for the Jews and Nazis and Nazi Germany. And sometimes Raw would be a little tiny digest magazine, and sometimes it was big like this. And I've got a few issues of Raw. I think it's pretty sought after now. I don't know. It seems like I heard stuff like that. People are excited about it. It looks like I've got some oversized movie magazines in this box. Look at that. It's Katharine Hepburn. You know, we just always think of her as this older lady, but she was not always an older lady. This is a pretty famous issue, because you see this image reprinted a lot. This is roller rink music from the 1950s. If you went to a roller rink in the 50s, this is what you would hear. If you ever watch the Buddy Holly story, at the beginning you hear music kind of like this playing, and they have the guy that's playing the music in the movie The Buddy Holly Story is this guy. He was forget his name. Was it Fred Bergen? Anyway, he owned a roller rink in Los Angeles called Rinx, R-I-N-X, and he made 45 RPM recordings of himself playing this, and it has to be carefully measured, the beats of the music for people that are professional roller skaters to train to. But he would make these records based on all the top songs in the top 40, and he would send them on a subscription basis to roller rinks all around the country. And so these Rinks records, I have a whole box of them, and this is a collection I made on a long playing DVD. See, to me that's cool. It's predicting the space shuttle, but you know, these commie socialists would want to destroy these magazines because of the lead in them. And in reality, it's because they don't want you to see the past, what people thought the future would be like, how people predicted the world would be. Here's Marion Marsh. Beautiful painting. This is just only a cover, but that's Helen Hayes. How about that? Top Secret. These were the real scandal magazines. Lily St. Cyr was a beautiful burlesque star. Flying Aces. Yeah, don't chew on these pulps because you'll get lead in your mouth, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe we should just put them all in a landfill, huh? Never vote Democrat. You'll be voting to extinguish the past. It seems like all comic book collectors would be conservative, because that's what you're doing. You're conserving the past. That's by your very definition, as a comic book collector, you are conservative. You're a conservator. You're a museum owner. All of us, we have museums. We have private museums. We're preserving this stuff for the future, and there are people that would just love it to be all thrown away. Remember that the Nazis were socialist, National Socialist. So they like to call the other side Nazis. In reality, they're the Nazis. You know, just read your history books. Yes, indeed. Look at that. Patriotic music with this. Isn't that great music for these patriotic images? What do we have here? Oh, this is real screen fun. This is, what was her name? This was a famous burlesque star, and I can't remember her name. See the white streaks in her hair, like Tulsi Gabbard, right? Or Lily Munster. That's a good look. I think the white streaks in the hair. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, look at this. It's a detective magazine. Isn't that great? Oof. Wow. It's cool to look through your books because you forget what you own. Look at that, man. Do we have enough light for that? Hold on. My camera almost fell. Look at that. That's supposed to be Theda Bara. Theda Bara, a movie star that is completely forgotten by most people today. She played Cleopatra. This is her playing Cleopatra, but the movie's been lost. That's the danger, you know. It's like culture could be lost. It was a huge movie, a silent movie about Cleopatra, starring with one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. You can't watch it now because there's no copies of it that exist today. That's the danger of, and it wasn't that it was banned or burned. It's just all the copies, I guess, disintegrated, and people didn't care about silent movies anymore because they had sound movies. Sometimes there's a famous Lon Chaney movie that's lost called London After Midnight, but sometimes these movies wind up getting found in these countries that have been isolated and shut off, you know, Cuba or these countries that are go commie, whatever, and then they, you know, people stop trading with them, and so you find, and the silent movies, it's more likely they would wind up in countries that don't speak English because you don't have to translate them. They're silent. All you have to do is change the title cards, you know, to explain what people are saying. So sometimes movies turn up, but I don't think that, unfortunately, Theda Bara's movie will turn up. Most of her movies aren't. I think there's only a couple of her movies in her whole film career that are still out there where you can watch. That wasn't her real name. It was an anagram. They took Arab death and they scrambled the letters and they came up with Theda Bara. All right. Oh, wow. I have a whole bunch of bags and boards for big magazines. Look at this. I got a whole bunch here. Oh, I'm glad I know this. Now I can... wow. And look, I was wondering where these were. I want to put these up, maybe framed. They're puzzles. Look at this. Look at all the... Just imagine how much lead is in that black ink. These would be really good in a... Oh, share that thunder? Let's go look at the thunderstorm here in a second. Look at this. It's Judy Jetson writing a love letter to Jet Screamer. Remember Eep Ork? How did it go? Eep Ork, ooh, ah, ah. Eep Ork, ooh, ah, ah was the rock and roll sensation of the future world. And, you know, the band The Dickies, they did a cover version of Eep Ork, ooh, ah, ah. You'll have to look that up on YouTube. Because you don't want to be spending money right now. When I tell you about cool books and records, hold off on the cool books. Go to YouTube, listen to the records, make copies. We don't want to be, unless you're super rich, you don't want to be spending money right now because things are about to happen. I think things are about to go down like real soon. You want to be spending money on supplies, water, rice, food that will last, because you will regret it, and we need to do the same thing. So it's gonna work out. Things will get better. It's just they may have to get bad before they get better, get worse before they get better, and then I think things will be great. Look at that. Fantastic. What else is in this box? Another one of these frame tray puzzles. There was of course, it's from the Monster Craze. Some kid that owned this has labeled it Puzzle 2. Now, here's something. Jim Steranko did this. This is in my Treasury box. This is the History of Comics from Jim Steranko. It cost $4 back in the day. I got this for Christmas. It was 1975 when we lived in Tacoma, Washington. Look at this wraparound cover of all the heroes. And it's really scholarly writing, and he shows a lot of the covers. This is my first exposure to all these great Golden Age, a lot of these great Golden Age heroes, and he goes into the pulps And of course, I would talk to my father. Do you remember these comics? And he says, well, I remember having a there's the Bloody Pulps. This is the first volume. I think he intended to do more than two, but he only did 2 editions of this. It's like a oversized magazine, and you can tell he spent some time on this. But I asked my father, did you have any of these? And he said, well, I remember I had a Superman comic, and it showed his home planet exploding and his rocket ship. And I was going, man, I hope that wasn't Action Comics #1 or Superman #1, because those both showed that image, and he would have been the right age. He would have been he was in high school during World War II, so he would have been the right age to be a little kid in the late 30s. And oh well, this is volume 2, and this beautiful cover, which reminds you of the Foom poster, which I can show you here in a second. But it's just, I want to go look at the storm. Hey, what happened to the music? Listen to Captain Marvel, all the great stuff. This is, I don't think this would cost you a whole lot of money to buy today, but what do I know? I've got some vintage National Enquirers here. Oh, this fan is not good with this brittle old paper. The ceiling fan. I'm not the greatest actress, but what are they implying, Mr. National Enquirer? Here's an original piece of art. I don't know for what, or was it published? Is it amateur? I don't know. I got it from my friend Tom. Oh, listen to that rain, man. We got to look at it because some people have not had rain in a while. The Crypt Keeper of Castle Hills was telling me they haven't had rain in San Antonio in so long. Look at this. It's a coloring book. World War II coloring book. How about that? Back when boys were men, this is a He-Man coloring book. It's not a coloring book for sissies, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I forgot about this Dave Stevens pinup book. This big, I guess it's all suitable for framing. Yeah, yep. I bought everything of Dave Stevens when it was coming out. I just thought he was the greatest. All right, let's go look at this rain. And those covers of those Steranko History of Comics books. Oh, come on. Where's the rest of the music? I was saying, it reminds me of the Foom poster. That's this up here. That's my childhood Foom poster. And I would always notice as a kid that Spider-Man's eyes weren't colored white. That always kind of bothered me, but it's a beautiful poster. All right, it's time to look at the rain. Here's a picture of my mother when she was in World War II here. Oh, look at this promotional flyer for Xenozoic Tales. This is something you would pick up on the counter at the comic book store. And, of course, I got 2 of them. It's promoting the Harvey Kurtzman's Jungle Book. All right, we'll go look at the rain, then we'll come back and look at more, right? What time is it, ladies and gentlemen? If you could tell me down in the comments below what time it is, because I don't know what time it is.
into something kind of more crazy looking. I think a lot of
Ooh, it's raining hard out there. Well, how about that, ladies and gentlemen? Rain. Um, okay. I wonder how long this the camera will. My phone. Every time I do a show, it. I delete things off my phone so that I'll have more room to do a TV show, and it looks like this one's going a little bit longer than usual. What are some other things that I could show you? Um, Let me turn this light off. Um, Maybe there's some good books here on this shelf. Um, this is Hanna-Barbera's World of Super Adventure, whole book about Hanna-Barbera superhero shows. Um, um, I'm trying to put it back in with one hand. That's not good. There we go. All right, let's go back upstairs. I'm still trying to find my copy of the Frederick Wortham book. Is it over here? Um, Hold on. Here's a book related to it. Wortham was right. What a wonderful cover. If you look at that in detail, good comics, and you see the images of all the goodness, and this kid reading bad comics with a flashlight at night. See all the images of. It's another collection of POV columns by Mark Evanier. I always pronounce it Evanier, but I hear other people say Evanier. I don't know. Cartoons by Sergio Aragonis. I don't know. I pronounce names the way I've always thought they were pronounced, and then I see people on YouTube pronouncing them differently, and I don't know if they're more of an authority, or maybe they met the person at a convention and know how they're pronounced. It's like I always thought it was Herb Trimp, and then I become aware that, well, it's really Herb Trimpy. But how am I supposed to know that? Unless there's an accent mark over the E or something to tell me, hey, this is a little bit different. I'm looking at these bookshelves, trying to find. It's here somewhere. There's the Howard Stern books. I was so into Howard Stern, and now he's turned into the complete antithesis of what I thought he was when I was listening to him in the 90s. So disappointing. That's why you don't really necessarily want to like I've never really lined up at a convention and gotten something signed and paid someone to sign something. Um, I think I got, um, what was his name? Gunnar Hansen, the guy that played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I got his signature, um, but I didn't pay him. He just gave me his signature, and but I wouldn't want to line up and pay someone for their signature. That's kind of like, to me, weird. And sometimes I don't want to meet people, because what if someone you think is really cool turns out to be an a-hole? You know, I was disappointed in Linda Carter, because Carrie Lake is just clearly a nice person. And the woman that supposedly won that election, I want to chronicle this. You see Drew there? And then look, there's Pete, and there's Alan, and they're all occupying the same bed and living peacefully. Someday, Russia and Ukraine will be at peace. The whole world will be at peace, and Jesus will return to the earth, and all will be well. Someday, all will be restored to the earth, but for right now, we live. Okay, maybe it's over here. There's more books over here. Is this? Nope. Nope. Look at this. This is a picture of my father, I guess in high school. And my father is this guy right here. You see him there? The other day I had a dream, and we were, I guess in the dream it was supposed to be this house I'm living in now, but there was a lot of things different about it. And my father was there, and my brother that passed away was there, and his family was there, but they were all young like they were when he was alive, and it was like we were all together, and I think it was my birthday, and they had all brought from somewhere, they had all these Frankenstein collectible statues and toys that I never knew existed. And I was, before, in real life, my brother's family, they didn't know what to give me as gifts, because they thought I was a pretty weird, odd duck. But somehow they had found this amazing Frankenstein collectibles. They'd gone to some Universal place or something, but it was just, that was a day that I slept a little later, because I tried to go back to sleep. Because sometimes you go back to sleep and you can enter back into that same dream universe. You can, like, you ever have that where you have a dream, you wake up, and then you go back to sleep and you're back into that dream? I don't know. Is that something that's common? But I wanted to go back to that world where everyone was still around, and where I still had a family. Now the only family I have left is my wife's family. And I have a brother that has not contacted, another brother that hasn't contacted me in forever. But my goal later today and tomorrow is to try to organize this house more, because in that dream this house was very organized. So it's caused me to be, like, why? What is this stuff here? What is, I need to put this somewhere. What is this? Well, okay, it's something that's oddly shaped, so I don't know where to put it. I guess it should be put in a magazine box. It's Golden Age reprints mixed with newer stuff. So for right now, I'm going to just put it down here. I'm going to do it. I was talking to Mike, the Crypt Keeper of Castle Hills. I said, I'm just going to do the organizing of the house on video, and that will force me to actually do something. All right, so I looked through this box. Here's a painting I did of Vampira. I'm pretty proud of this. I mean, it's not very good. I mean, objectively, it's not very good. But for me, it's pretty good, and it'll look good on a wall in a frame. So that's something. Even my wife would agree that would look good in her front. Look, I've got Spice Girls magazines. Because I didn't damage it. Because I was really into the Spice Girls. You can laugh all you want, but so was Peter Bagg and a lot of these underground cartoonists. They were better than the average. You're just gonna laugh at me. Let's see. This is when Josie and the Pussycats they made a movie of Josie and the Pussycats. I didn't think the movie was terrible. The music in it was tolerable. It was okay. Oh, here's I was given this by a student. They said, here, found some old comics in the attic. Here, you can have this. And it's Justice League. I never had this one. It's in pretty rotten condition, but it's readable. So that was a nice thing. Oh, here's another one of those Alex Ross treasuries. Just beautiful art. This guy is really. I mean, this is what these movies should look like. They shouldn't be all dark and Zack Snydery. They should. All you gotta do is use Alex Ross as a template. This is what what everything should look like. It's all right there, done for you. All you gotta do is just. Here's some other paintings I did. Morticia. That one is not as good as the vampire one. I'm not talking about Carolyn Jones is not as good as Mila Nurmi. That's not a very good painting. This one, nobody ever paints her from Blood of Dracula, so I tried to do that. You don't see her on the cover of Famous Monsters very often. I mean, this girl doesn't get her just due. And there's a Wolfman painting I did. It looks like a paint by number, doesn't it? Yeah. I'm not fishing for compliments. I'm just making statements. This would also look good on the wall next to those space age frame tray puzzles. This calendar page. This space girl. It says Venus. Romance is different up on Mars. With no porch savings, with no porch swings and no parked cars, jet rockets are what Earthmen need to woo space girls with super speed. Look at that Earthman there chasing her. Houston Tool Traders. You can tell it's before when they had letters and phone numbers. Yes, indeed. All right, so how about that, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, so what else is in this pile up here that we've got to clear off? I want to go through comics in the M boxes soon, and that's going to be an upcoming project. This is an autographed picture of Gene Summers, the rockabilly guy. He autographed it to me and to my wife, but then the picture starts to go bad. So when it started to go bad, I quickly made copies of it and framed the copies. This, I don't know how to stop the disintegration. This happened to me with an Irish McCullough photograph, and I have several autographed pictures of Betty Page, and then the picture starts to go bad. I guess it wasn't in the chemicals long enough, but the signatures are still good. I made copies of the Betty Page pictures. Those are the ones that are framed, and then, what will ultimately happen if the picture just goes away, the writing would still be there, and I could cut that out and frame it matted with the actual photograph of him that's not faded. So yeah, I need to put that somewhere. Oh, a copy of Sham Comics. This is like Mystery Science Theater kind of thing. It's like they reprint old comics and they change the word balloons to make them funny. So I need to get that in the boxes over there. Here's some Monster t-shirts being sold. Graphic Man did put a show up yesterday with his friend in Missouri that is a huge monster collector, and he's wearing an amazing Kolchak, the Night Stalker t-shirt, and Kolchak's written in the same font as the famous Monsters logo. And I was watching, and my wife comes in and says, I was just about to buy you that t-shirt. I saw it on this t-shirt. I forget what the name of the company. And I said, well, that shirt's amazing. That'll be a great present. And so I'll ask her what the company is, so maybe we can all have that Kolchak shirt, because I thought that's the greatest thing, one of the greatest things ever. Well, it's a 2015 monthly planner. This must have been my wife's. Is there anything written in it? Yes. Not that it's my business. Pedicure and manicure and facial, estate sales. Okay, some doctor appointments. Yeah, you don't want to. I don't throw anything away because it's cool looking, so I'll put it there. What do we got here? Oh, it's a poster. Who sent me? I think this might have come from Gotham City Comics. He sent this as a little extra thing in a package. It's a Batman the Animated Series poster. So I need to get this with posters. Maybe I'll put that there. What do we got here? What is this? Oh, this is a little fanzine from the 70s. A week's worth of comics. It's from December 77. And so this was not even stapled, it's just put together. And it's this is the first issue. And Howard the Duck was so popular there for a little while, he had an actual newspaper comic strip. Did you know that? So it and it pulls out. It has like this Gil Kane and Ron Goulart Starhawks, but you can take it apart, which is actually something that kind of bothers my OCD tendencies, like the Howard the Duck section. You can pull it out and read it, and then on the back is the whole Sunday comic strip. And welcome to the premiere issue of America's weekly comics newspaper. It is our goal to present you with a permanent set of the finest adventure strips on the market today, and to bring you a full week's worth of entertainment at one time and in a format which makes it easy for you to remove and preserve each story intact. So this guy has Starhawks, Howard the Duck, and then he also has his own comic strip in here. So this is how, that's a little tricky thing. He also does this Conan style Tarkson, whatever, Ursog. It's, it's an amateur comic strip, but that way he can disseminate his art to the populace. So that's a fanzine, a week's worth of comics. That's the only one I have. I got that at Lone Star Comics when it came out. Okay, here's a flyer for a pinball machine from that Lost in Space movie that I thought was very regrettable. I just got all kinds of stuff. I don't know where to put it, man. Picture of Jesus that was always on the wall growing up. It was always framed, but now I can see the actual price tag on the back from, what does that say? It would have been from a 5 and dime, but I love this picture. It's reminds me of home. So these looks like a bunch of pinball flyers advertising. This is for Monster Bash, which is a Universal Monsters pinball machine. But I just think that artwork is. See that artwork, those paintings I showed you that were pretty amateurish? They were better than that. This is like this. Honestly, there were kids in my high school commercial art class that could do better than that with an airbrush. What was this from? some collectible. Oh, it must be something I ordered from someone on eBay, and it says